Well, this didn't go quite as planned. I had intended to publish this all as one video, but it was just too long. Comes out just over an hour altogether. So I'm going to break it into 3 roughly 20-minute sections, and this was the first one. Hi y'all, Billy here. Welcome to the Messy Studio. If you watched part 4 of So You Want to Turn Pins, at the end I said in the next part I was going to make a pin. Well, this is it. It's a modified slimline using a specialized blank, or what I referred to in that episode as a specialized blank. This is stabilized cross-cut marble wood. It had some challenges, and you'll see that here in a little bit. So keep watching if you want to see how this all turned out. This is part 5 of So You Want to Turn Pins. In it, I thought I would show you the process that I use in making a pin. It's really not all that complicated. First thing you have to do, obviously, is decide what pin kit you want to use, and you have to determine what blank you want to use. So I went through my blanks. Actually, you can choose either one in either order, it really doesn't matter. So I went through my blanks, and I showed you this piece of marble wood in episode 4 when we were talking about pin blanks. Makes a really pretty pin. This happens to be cross-cut, which means the grain runs this way, so it's cut across, and you can see that's end grain there, and there you see the side grain, and there you see the end grain. Cross-cut and cut on a bias where the grain would be running, well, the cut would be like this at basically a 45-degree angle to the grain. Makes some really pretty pins, especially in a wood that's got different colors of grain running through it like this marble wood does. So, having chosen the blank, next thing I need to do is choose the right pin kit for it. Well, this is not a cheap blank, and I believe it's been stabilized, which just means it's been impregnated with resin. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a pin kit, particularly a plating that's fitting a blank of this nature. And in this case, I'm going to use a slimline, but I'm going to use a titanium slimline because if you remember from episode 3 when we were talking about kits, I mentioned that my favorite platings were the harder platings like chrome, titanium, platinum. So, all that said, we're going to use titanium. First thing you need to do is prepare the blank. Well, how do you do that? It's pretty simple. What I like to do, let me get you in here a little bit closer. I like to look the blank over and figure out where my best points of interest are. And the most bland part of this blank looks to be this very end down here. So what I do is I line the tubes up. I give myself a little bit of room on the end. I put the tube here. I make a mark at the end of the tube. You can see the pencil mark right there. I take the other tube, in which case the slimline tubes are both the same size. So I'll take the other tube, move it to so that it's just touching the pencil mark. The pencil mark is actually roughly the same size as the kerf on my bandsaw. And I'll make another mark giving me about a 1/16 of an inch. You can see that mark there. I'll make another mark giving me about a 1/16 of an inch to work with. So I've got roughly a 1/16 of an inch on either side of the tube. The other thing I do is you've got to have a way to keep this lined up. I'm really particular when it comes to grain orientation. You see how this makes a continuous flow? Here you can't tell so much, but here there's a continuous flow in the grain pattern. On the other side the same way. I like that to look that way as best I can when I deliver it to the customer. So how do I do that? I'm going to take the most plain side of the blank, in which case right here. Here's my cut line. So I go just opposite my cut line. Here's the cut line, just opposite the cut line, and I'll draw a woodworker's triangle, or a carpenter's triangle. So there's the carpenter's triangle, and there's the cut line. You see the cut line here, carpenter's triangle here. Now what that carpenter's triangle does is reminds me, once I get this cut apart, that these two pieces go together there. And I'll show you more about that as we go along. So now that I've got it marked, it's time to get it cut. So I take my mark, set it on the bandsaw sled. I like to use the bandsaw because I get as small as curve as possible. And you can see when it goes back together, you can barely tell there's been anything taken out of it. So now it's time to drill it out. But before we do that, I need to shorten this blank just a little bit so that it fits the other tube. So there's my carpenter's triangle. My grain alignment is like it should be. Let's go drill them out. Now for the slimline kit, it takes a 7mm bit. You can order these from the manufacturer of the pin kits, or any of the pin kit manufacturers for that matter. This happens to be a brad point. I set it up with my calipers so I can show you another method as well. This is the 7mm brad point. The other one that you see right here is a letter J bit out of my set, and it makes the same. So either a 7mm bit or a J bit will do the job. You do not have to order all of these fancy sized bits or specialty bits unless you just want to. Like I said in one of the previous episodes, I like to drill my blanks out on the lathe. If you do that, one of the things you're going to need is a drill chuck. Now, yeah, this is probably overkill. I got this from Little Machine Shop years ago because I got mad. I bought a chuck from one of the pin suppliers that was supposed to take bits up to a 1/2 inch. And many of the larger pin kits have shanks that are a 1/2 inch. The bit itself is bigger than that, but the shanks are a 1/2 inch. And the 1/2 inch didn't fit in anything over a 1/2 inch. I had one that didn't have a 1/2 inch shank, and it was just over a 1/2 inch, and it didn't fit. So I got mad and I ordered this from Little Machine Shop. It's it's overkill, but it does what I need it to do. If you're gonna drill on a lathe, you need a chuck, and you need the right jaws. Now they make specialized pin jaws that you can buy, but if you've got a set of step jaws, you've got over 1 inch worth of grab there, and that's plenty. Actually closer to 1.5 inches. So I like to drill, I don't know if you can see it. I find my carpenter's triangle, and I will drill that in first. Set it in get it in the chuck. Don't take it down into the depths of the jaws. Make sure you square it up. Test the run. That looks pretty good. This isn't perfectly square, which is why this isn't lining up the way I'd like it. Now, the first thing I want to do, even though I'm going to use, for this first one, I'm going to use both bits that I showed you, the J and the 7mm, just to show you that it works. First thing I'm going to do though is chuck up a center drill. I'm going to drill both of these with the center drill before I actually drill them, because that ensures I actually have the center. You don't want to drill too fast. This is 400, that ought to do about right. Bring it up. We'll use the 7mm first. Back it off every now and then to clear the shavings. You don't want to get this hot. Yeah, it's been stabilized. I can smell the resin. I just heard a disconcerting crack, did you? And we're through. Now, I hope that crack wasn't where I didn't want it. We'll have to see. It was almost through. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it cracked right there. It's a small split running about a ½ inch on both sides. And that's one of the reasons that I quit using the brad point. So I took the blank out and I filled the cracks with CA and I put it between the clamps. I don't know if you can see the crack. I barely can. So because that's had CA in it now, I want to re-drill it. Just to make sure that the tube has clearance. You see a few shavings coming out of there. And you'll notice nice and centered on both sides. I got a nice straight through hole. Check the tube for fit. It goes in easily, falls out the other side. Just enough room for the glue to go all the way around. Now we'll drill the second one. Part of my carpenter's triangle here. That's centered. Tighten it down. Remember, I start with a center drill. Gets a bit close and run it in. Back it up. Keep backing it out to clear the chips. That's one of the things that'll overheat this bit. And when you overheat a bit, which I might have done on the last one, is one of the things that causes those blanks to crack, especially a really hard, dense wood, an oily wood like cocobolo, teak. Purple Heart is really bad about heat. So is pink ivory. And synthetics. And this is resin impregnated, so you got to be careful. We should be getting close. We should be really close. We're up to here. We've only got probably a few millimeters left. Yep, and there we go. No cracks. I didn't hear anything this time. Take it out and see how it looks. A little rough on the ends, but that's to be expected. That's not too bad at all. Take it with the tube. Tube goes in easy. Comes out the other side, no problem. Just right for the epoxy to hold. So now, let me put my bits and stuff away, and just so you know, I just took this bit out. It's not hot, it's barely warm. That's what happens when you clean the chips regularly. Now the first thing you have to do before you can glue these tubes in is you got to sand them up. A lot of people do this by hand. It doesn't take that long. But I don't do it by hand. Let me show you. All you gotta do is give it some bite. Now the tubes have been roughed up, they've got some bite. Now to make sure they're nice and clean, I'm going to wipe them down with a little bit of lacquer thinner. That takes all the oil and sawdust off. Now we're ready to mix up some epoxy and start gluing. Let me find all my paraphernalia. For mixing my epoxy, I use stir sticks. These are wooden stir sticks, coffee stirrers, whatever you want to call them. You can use plastic ones too. I bought these at some dollar store. They were on clearance for like 50 cents a pack of, 200 or 300. I bought 4 or 5 packs. I've still got enough to last me probably my lifetime. I like to use cards. This is something that one of my grandkids' toys came on. It was a special car from Racing Champions. I like to use cards to mix my epoxy, trash. That way I get more use out of it and then I can throw it away. I will also use the card that came in the epoxy package. I'm also going to use the plastic thing from the back of the package. Doesn't take a whole lot. This is 5-minute epoxy. A lot of people like to use super glue. I don't. I don't think that you get enough of a coat on the inside, and I've also had problems with it sticking too early. Roll the tube Get a good coating on it. Work it down into the blank. Get some glue down in there nice and good. Now I'll find this is the end I'm working on, because there's my carpenter's triangle, so that's the end I'm sticking it in first. Now I'll take some on the stick and spread it around inside the back part of the tube, of the blank. Now I'll put this in, spin it down, drag some of the epoxy up onto the tube itself. This tube needs to be really, really well coated. Spin it down in, finish coating. Push it down using the stick so that it's flush pretty much with this end. If it fills up on the inside down here, which it did, clean it out. The reamer will take care of the rest of that. And then set it aside to dry up. Carpenter's triangle is here. I'm going to start at that end. Roll my tube. I hope you find it useful. If you did, come back and watch parts B and C, where we'll actually go into trimming and finishing off the blanks flush with the tubes, and then begin the turning process. And we'll finish it out in 5C. So thanks again for watching. I appreciate it. Please like and subscribe if you've liked anything you've seen. And come back and see us.